So it was something I really wanted to do, but then I thought, how is the audience going to react to this? You know, are they ready for me to really do this? And I thought, they are. They have to be. I'm 25 now.
There was a moment, frozen in time, when the face of Kristy McNichol was a constant presence. Her smile, a beacon, her warmth, a familiar embrace, her emotion, an open wound on screen. For her, acting wasn't a performance, it was a possession. She didn't just inhabit a role, she allowed it to inhabit her. In the 1970s and 80s, she transcended the title of Hollywood's favorite teenager. She became its very pulse. But then, at the absolute zenith of her fame, she simply vanished. No public implosion, no tearful goodbye. Only a profound, echoing silence. For decades, her story became a Hollywood ghost story, a question whispered in the shadows. Until now, to understand the silence, we must go back to the beginning. A star is born. Kristy McNichol entered the world on September 11, 1962. Her birthplace, Los Angeles, California, the city of celluloid dreams. But for the McNichol family, life was a world away from the glitz and glamour. Her world was a humble home, shared with her mother, Carolyn, and her older brother, Jimmy. An early shadow fell over their lives when her father departed, leaving a void in the family portrait. It was Carolyn who was left to stitch the family back together, fueled by a fierce, quiet determination. She became a whirlwind of tireless work, juggling jobs as a secretary, a makeup saleswoman, even stepping into the background of low-budget films, any small part to pay the rent and keep the cupboards from going bare. For the McNichols, the daily script was about survival, not stardom. And then, on one of those dusty, forgotten film sets, destiny made its move. With no money for a babysitter, Carolyn brought young Kristy and Jimmy into the world she was trying to conquer. As she moved through the background, just another face in the crowd, a crew member's eye was caught not by the stars, but by the undeniable light radiating from her children. He offered a simple observation to Carolyn. Her kids had a spark, perfect for commercials. It was a casual comment, a throwaway line that would unlock a door to a universe they never knew existed. Before long, the children were making the rounds, auditioning for the staples of American television: toothpaste, breakfast cereal, fizzy soft drinks. And to the astonishment of everyone, they began to land the parts. Jimmy, with his easy charm and laid-back nature, found his footing almost immediately. But Kristy, she was something else entirely. There was an indefinable quality to her, a rare alchemy of youthful innocence and a soul that seemed ancient. It was a gravity that pulled you in. Casting directors saw it instantly, an emotional intelligence far beyond her years, a face that could hold both the brightest light and the deepest sorrow in a single glance. Even at the tender age of 10, she wasn't just reciting lines, she was feeling them. By the mid-1970s, Kristy had become a familiar face, a steady presence in guest spots on hit shows like Time's Apple's Way Times and Time's Starsky and Hutch ***. And then, in 1976, came the script that would rewrite her destiny. The part was Letitia Buddy Lawrence, in ABC's groundbreaking drama, *Family*. She was just 13 years old when the cameras started rolling, but what she delivered was nothing short of a revelation. The series bravely navigated the turbulent waters of real-life divorce, the pains of adolescence, the search for identity, and Buddy emerged as its undeniable emotional core. This was no cookie-cutter sitcom child. Buddy was a tapestry of contradictions, complex, fiercely sensitive, stubbornly opinionated, and often profoundly lost. Kristy didn't just play Buddy, she seemed to channel her, as if the character were an extension of her own soul. Critics were floored, lauding her incredible maturity and raw authenticity. The industry took notice. She earned 3 straight Emmy nominations for Best Supporting Actress, taking home the coveted statue twice in 1977 and again in 1979. It was a staggering accomplishment for a young woman who had barely learned to drive. America fell in love with her. Her face graced the cover of countless magazines. She became a fixture on the talk show circuit, universally hailed as America's little sister. But fame, as it so often does, extracted a heavy price. Away from the bright lights, Kristy's world was built on a fragile foundation. Her mother, Carolyn, was not just her manager. The entire family's survival now rested on the shoulders of a child. In a moment of haunting clarity, Kristy would later confess, "I felt like the grown-up in the house. My mom was the child." This profound role reversal began to carve away at her spirit. While her peers obsessed over school dances and first dates, Kristy's mind was a landscape of contracts, memorizing lines, and the crushing weight of professionalism. Her childhood was a blur of sound stages, press junkets, and a responsibility far too heavy for her years, leaving any trace of a normal teenage life completely erased. By the time the final curtain fell on Family Times in 1980, Kristy McNichol had already scaled heights most actors only dream of. She was adored, respected, her talent undeniable, yet deep within, a profound exhaustion and an aching void had taken root. The young girl from Los Angeles had given the world precisely what it demanded. What she had yet to learn was that Hollywood, in return, would take everything it could. Fame always collects its debt. When the set of Family Times went dark in 1980, Kristy McNichol was only 18 years old, but she carried the weariness of someone who had already lived 2 lifetimes. Her world, since childhood, had been sound stages and call sheets, performing for the cold, unblinking eye of a camera, while most kids were just learning the sound of their own voice. Hollywood didn't see a teenager, it saw a perfectly calibrated instrument, an asset who could deliver emotion on cue, so when the series wrapped, there was no intermission, no moment to breathe. The offers became a tidal wave, and Kristy, caught in the current, said yes to every single one. That very year, she stood opposite Tatum O'Neal in Time's Little Darlings, a film that chronicled 2 girls from opposite worlds, making a provocative wager in the hazy heat of summer camp. It was never just another teen movie. It was an unflinching look into the raw, confusing heart of adolescence. And Kristy's performance as Angel Bright, a street-tough girl shielding a deeply fragile core, was nothing short of mesmerizing. Critics lauded her authenticity, her raw naturalism. The legendary Roger Ebert himself wrote that her performance made you desperate to know what she would do next. The film ignited a cultural phenomenon. The teen magazines couldn't print her face fast enough. She was America's rebel sweetheart, confident, independent, and yet so achingly, powerfully real. But fame, as it always does, casts a long and hungry shadow. In that same breathless year, she appeared in Time's The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia, Times alongside Dennis Quaid and Mark Hamill, commanding one of the largest salaries ever paid to a performer her age. Then, in 1981, she plunged into another emotionally draining role in Neil Simon's Time's Only When I Laugh playing the daughter of a mother battling addiction. The film brought her a Golden Globe nomination and a torrent of critical acclaim. From the outside, her career was a star in meteoric ascent. On the inside, she was quietly disintegrating. She would later confess that she never learned how to say no, not to directors, not to producers, not even to her own mother. The Hollywood machine demanded constant motion, and Kristy, desperate to please, simply complied. Before I could even say yes or no, she recalled, I'd be on a plane to a new set. What she couldn't see was that every yes was chipping away at her very foundation, a slow erosion of her health and her peace of mind. She was a child trapped in the machinery of an adult world, a starlet expected to perform endlessly, and without a single word of complaint. By 1982, the fine cracks in the facade began to show. Her next project, the pirate movie was a light, frothy musical parody that was savaged by the critics. In a cruel twist of fate, she was nominated for a Golden Raspberry Award for Worst Actress, a stunning blow for the young woman just hailed as Hollywood's most promising talent. But the problem was never the movie. It was everything simmering beneath it. The suffocating pressure, the sleepless nights, the constant, gnawing anxiety. They were eating her alive. In 1984, Kristy accepted what appeared to be a dream role in Time's Just the Way You Are a romantic drama to be filmed in the majestic French Alps. Her character was a musician with a disability, learning to embrace who she was, a story that, in a tragic irony, paralleled Kristy's own hidden battle. But by then, her mental health had been pushed to the absolute breaking point. The darkness began to manifest in terrifying ways, crippling panic attacks, nights stolen by nightmares, and a frame that grew alarmingly frail. To those who loved her, it was as if she was fading away before their very eyes. She was vanishing not just in body, but in spirit. Her pleas for a lifeline were met with the cold, unyielding mantra of the industry. "The show must go on. Don't worry," they assured her. "We'll get through it." But it was a promise empty of understanding. After returning from France, a line was crossed. For Kristy McNichol, something had irrevocably shattered. She was a ghost of her former self. The medical verdict was a litany of invisible wounds, profound exhaustion, crippling anxiety, and a deep, gnawing emotional trauma. It was the kind of damage that accumulates slowly, silently, after a lifetime spent being the unshakable pillar for everyone else. To her, the diagnosis felt like a personal failure. Meanwhile, the studio behind Time's Just the Way You Are, Time scrambled to control the narrative, reducing her profound pain to a sterile, clinical term, a chemical imbalance. The tabloids, however, showed no such restraint. Their headlines painted a cruel caricature, a volatile, fallen idol, a cautionary tale of a child star who had flown too close to the sun. But the truth was far more heroic. She wasn't falling, she was fighting to save herself. "It would have been easier to kick an addiction," she would later confess, revealing the depth of her struggle, "than go through the years of hell that I did." Though she summoned the strength to return and finish the film, a certain light in her eyes had been extinguished. When the movie premiered in 1984, audiences were captivated by a fragile, haunting beauty on screen, never suspecting that the palpable sorrow they witnessed was not a performance at all. For a time, Kristy attempted to piece her career back together, to find her footing in the world that had nearly broken her. She took on roles in films like Time's Dream Lover ***, You Can't Hurry Love ***, and, prophetically, ***, The Forgotten One ***. But Hollywood's gaze had shifted, and in her heart, so had hers. The dream of fame, once a guiding star, now felt like the cold iron bars of a cage. In the quiet solitude of her own home, a silent war was being waged against sleepless nights, tempestuous moods, and a sadness so profound it threatened to drown her. These were the shadows of a condition that doctors would one day name bipolar disorder. Through this disorienting darkness, one constant remained: her brother, Jimmy McNichol. They had entered this glittering, treacherous world together, and as Kristy's universe imploded, he refused to let her fall alone. "She wasn't just my sister," Jimmy would later reflect. "She was my kid, my best friend." He moved into her life, becoming her anchor, cooking, cleaning, and simply being present to help her navigate the storm. For Kristy, who had spent her entire life shouldering the burdens of others, it was a revelation. For the first time, someone was taking care of Time's her asterisk. By the mid-1980s, she had all but vanished from the Hollywood landscape, a phantom haunting the town she once ruled. The effervescent teenager from Time's Family Times was a distant memory, replaced by a woman searching for her own reflection. When the cameras stopped rolling, and while a return to television was on the horizon, a part of her would remain forever separate from the world of make-believe. A return and a final farewell. In 1988, a lifeline appeared from an unlikely place. NBC extended an offer, and with it, something Kristy hadn't known in years: stability. The series was Time's Empty Nest ***, a companion piece to the beloved Times, The Golden Girls ***. She was cast as Barbara Weston, a police officer, strong on the surface but with a deep well of sensitivity, navigating life with her widowed father. It was a world away from the emotional minefield of Time's Family ***, but it offered something more valuable than accolades: a place to belong. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, her days were filled not with pressure, but with laughter. She was surrounded by genuine friends and a crew that cared. The public's response was a tidal wave of affection. They had missed her. And for the next several years, **Empty Nest Times soared. It became a cornerstone of Saturday night television, a perfect pairing with Time's The Golden Girls ***. America fell in love with Kristy McNichol all over again. But behind the warm studio lights, a familiar shadow lingered. The same invisible tide that had once pulled her under was beginning to rise again. There were nights stolen by insomnia, and days lost to tears she could not control. Then, in 1992, Amidst the show's fifth successful season, Kristy made a choice that sent shockwaves through the industry. Quietly, without a press conference or a dramatic farewell, she simply walked away. The official statement from her publicist cited health reasons, a vague and sterile explanation, but the full, unvarnished truth would remain a secret for nearly a decade. It wasn't until the year 2001 that Kristy would finally break her silence. She then revealed a truth she had carried in silence for years, a battle with manic depression, the condition now known as bipolar disorder. "I didn't want to talk about it at the time," she would later confess. "It was intensely private, but now, I want to tell people the truth." With those words, her honesty shattered a long-held stigma. In an era where mental health was a subject confined to the shadows, Kristy's confession was an act of profound and quiet courage. She hoped to reach others, to let them know they were not alone, especially those who, like her, felt trapped in the unforgiving space between public adoration and private fragility. She stepped back into the light one last time, for the Times' Empty Nest Times finale in 1995, a final, knowing nod to the fans who had grown up with her. After that, her presence lingered only as a voice in a few animated projects, Extreme Ghostbusters, Times in 1997, and Times Invasion America, Times a year later, and then she vanished from the public eye completely. The silver screen would never again capture her image. When a reporter later asked if she might ever return, a faint, knowing smile touched Kristy's lips as she said, "Never say never." But the gentle finality in her tone spoke volumes. The Hollywood chapter of her story was over. This time, however, she was the author of her own exit, the healing years. After stepping away from the footlights, Kristy McNichol finally found the one thing fame could never offer: time. Time to do something utterly foreign to a child star, to simply live for herself. She was 39 years old, and for the first time since childhood, her days were not dictated by scripts, by sets, by the relentless demands of a call sheet. The blinding glare of the spotlight had been replaced by a gentle quiet, and in that quiet, she found her remedy. She began to teach acting. At a private school in Los Angeles, she shared the wisdom of a lifetime in the industry with young students who admired her raw honesty as much as her celebrated talent. Teaching became her bridge, a way to stay connected to the art she loved, but free from the crushing weight that had nearly destroyed her. She would often tell her students that acting wasn't about the pursuit of fame, it was about the practice of empathy, the discovery of truth. Beyond the classroom, Kristy cultivated a life of deliberate peace. Her world was one of close friends and quiet dedication to local charities. She found a deep solace in simple routines, the mindful stretch of yoga, the sharp crack of a tennis ball, and filling her home with animals. Her beloved miniature dachshunds were a constant source of comfort. "They keep me grounded," she once remarked. "Dogs don't care if you're famous." Yet, these years of recovery were not without their sorrows. In 1997, just days before her 35th birthday, she faced a devastating heartbreak, losing a close friend and former partner, actress Elizabeth Brooks, to cancer. The loss carved a deep scar, but from that pain, an even deeper well of empathy grew within her. She rededicated herself to helping others, becoming a quiet but steadfast supporter of cancer research and mental health organizations. When asked what, if anything, she missed about acting, Kristy's answer was always immediate and always simple: the people, not the applause, not the pressure, just the human connection. For her, Hollywood had been both a magnificent gift and a profound wound, and now, at last, she was healing. Love, courage, and peace. In 2012, Kristy McNichol surprised the world one more time. It wasn't with a comeback, but with her truth. Through her publicist, she announced that she was gay and had been living in a happy, committed relationship with her partner, Marty Allen, since the early 1990s. It was not a media spectacle. It was a simple, powerful act of honesty. It was the end of decades of silence. "I want to help others who feel different," her statement read, "and to support kids who are being bullied." For the first time, fans saw the complete person, not the teen idol, not the troubled actress, but the woman who had survived it all, who had loved deeply, and who had forged her strength in the crucible of pain. Marty had been her anchor through every storm, through the public breakdown, through the difficult departure from Time's empty nest asterisk, and through the long, quiet years of rebuilding a life. Together, they had built a home filled not with applause, but with laughter. A life built on loyalty. And finally, peace. Today, Kristy McNichol inhabits a world deliberately set apart from the chaotic echoes of her past. At 62, she remains in Los Angeles, not under the glare of studio lights, but in the quiet dedication of teaching, mentoring. A rare appearance at a fan event, a ghost from a golden age. The financial remnants of that former life, a net worth estimated between $7 and $8 million, are but whispers from the past, royalties from celluloid memories. But currency could never measure the fortune she truly sought. In her own words, a single, haunting truth defines her: survival. "I was on the big stage between ages 8 and 30, she reflected. I left show business to play my biggest part, myself. A statement of devastating simplicity, yet it encapsulates the entire arc of her odyssey. This was not a star fading into obscurity. This was a human being choosing to walk away from the fire, simply to live. And so, Kristy's narrative transcends mere tragedy. It becomes a testament to a rare and formidable courage. The courage to declare enough, to willingly trade the blinding spotlight for the solace of the shadows. In the unforgiving landscape of Hollywood, a place where fame is a hunger that so often consumes the very souls it anoints, her deliberate exit may stand as her most powerful, most authentic performance. Kristy McNichol's life serves as a stark reminder that behind every incandescent smile projected onto the silver screen, there is a human heart, waging silent, unseen battles. She was not lost to the machine of fame. On the contrary, she found her truest self only after she had the strength to walk away. Which echo of Kristy's talent resonates most deeply with you? The raw emotion in Time's family asterisk, the defiant spirit of Time's little darlings asterisk, or the sharp wit of Time's empty nest asterisk? Share your memories in the chronicle below. If this story moved you, acknowledge it with a like, and subscribe to continue our journey into the lives of the icons who not only shaped Hollywood, but were brave enough to reshape their own.